This episode contains rude words.
Hello, lovely humans. Welcome back to another episode of the Practical Permaculture podcast. This week, I've got Michael. You might know him from Gardening with Michael on Instagram or perhaps YouTube. We chat about summer gardens, watering techniques, how to feed your plants, and we also touch on mental health as well. Before we get too far into the show, I just wanted to remind you about Elle from Australian Medicinal Herbs. She's sponsoring the podcast this season. This week, I want to tell you a little bit about her hibiscus tincture that she has. So tinctures are little dropper bottles. They're either made from alcohol or glycerin, and they're infused with the herbal product. The hibiscus is a really good one to boost immunity, and it also supports heart health. It's rich in antioxidants, so it helps fight free radicals and also inflammation within the body. It's great for liver health. It helps boost energy. It's particularly good for women's health as well. It can help cramping when you have your menstrual cycle, and it also helps create a balance within your hormones. If you're interested in her products, we have a discount code, which is PPP5%, the little percent sign, and you can check out all her products at australianmedicinalherbs.com.au. Hope you enjoy this week's episode. Welcome to the Practical Permaculture podcast, your weekly dose of gardening, intentional living, and all things permaculture, served with a side of fun and plenty of great conversations. I'm your host, Alysse, and together we'll dig into practical tips, chat with experts, and explore ways to cultivate a more abundant, sustainable life. Let's get growing. Hi.
Hello again. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm good. I was going to say, is it sunny out there? I can't see behind you. You've got your blinds down.
Yeah, it is. I closed it. It gets very glary. But yes, it's nice and sunny. I was just telling Joe before we hit record, we've hit rainy season here. So last year, that was when it rained for 8 weeks pretty much straight. So it's rainy season. It rains every night, well, nearly every night. And then you have these hot, humid days where it's like sticky.
Sticky.
So that's where we're at in our season. But this morning was the first day where I woke up and I was like, oh, there's a cool change in the air. Yeah. And we kind of had to pull the blankets up at 4 a.m. and it was just that little bit of, freshness to the air. So I think we're definitely coming into that, next season.
Yeah, we have that today as well. Like I'm in a bit of a light jumper today sitting in the office because, last night when I was putting the animals away and feeding up, I was like, I was just like in a summer dress and I'm like, this is a bit chilly. And then last night, I came in and I jumper on and slippers on and, pulled the blankets up and had the fan on because you still got to have the fan on. I don't care if it's sub-zero. We've still got the fan on. But just turned it down to 1, so it was a sensible. It was just, really cool or not. And today is really cool. It's beautiful in the sun, but even sitting inside, it's it's noticeable. Like you can really feel like this is kind of the start of that change. Yeah.
We don't get the big change till after Easter here. So like we're still swimming at Easter time up here. And you just get those little bits of mornings and nights that are a tiny bit kind of cooler. But like it was cool this morning, but I was still in my normal summer pajamas walking around. So it's not cold. It's just like you could just tell a little bit that something's just starting to change.
Just crisp. Yeah. So what's been happening?
Yes. Oh, we had a lovely weekend. We had Oscar's family up. We did our first season back, or our first day back, I should say, of nippers for the season.
Fantastic.
So we were off the last 2 weeks with sick kids. So it was just nice to get back, and it was nice having all the families going, oh, I'm so glad you're back, like as the age manager, and the kids love it. And so, I've got 17 kids on a Sunday that follow me around like little lost puppies.
Wow, go
all the boys wrestle in the sand, and you've got to like wrangle the boys and, cajole the girls and try and have a happy medium somewhere. But it's nice. And it just reminded me because I wrote an article for the local paper up here about permaculture and how it's not just about gardening. And I thought that's like a really good example of like everyday permaculture in action, like being part of the community and building those relationships. And I just kind of was thinking about that as nippers ended this weekend, and it really made me smile to think that, that's our giving back and our volunteering and our community connection and people care. And I just thought it would be cool to point out as well because, yeah, I think we forget sometimes that permaculture is in the everyday of what we're doing, and we get very caught up in it
Sure
having to
is.
like fit into a category, or we compartmentalize it as like part of our life that we're now doing permaculture, or the garden is permaculture. But it is, yeah, it is like more of that way of life and lens and thinking about things. And so, yeah, I just thought it was nice kind of to little add in there, and for other people to think about how other aspects of their day might be linked to permaculture like that.
It is good, isn't it, when you can take that time to overlay, because you can overlay anything, like anything in life, whether it's community engagement,
Yeah.
what you're doing in your own life, your own thoughts and your behaviors and your actions. Everything can be tied back to either the ethics or the principles, or like, as you said, that's people care,
Yeah.
but it could be relate back to some of the principles as well if we dug deeper into it, right?
Yeah, yeah. Or even something simple like when you're making dinner, to just really observe what you're doing and how you're doing it. Like, it doesn't have to be over complicated either. Or, when you are making dinner, like, think about how, you've obtained it. You're obtaining a yield through the nutrition you're about to receive. Like, I think we really overcomplicate what permaculture is, and sometimes people make it into this big, complicated or technical thing when it really doesn't have to be.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Yeah, it can be as technical or as simplistic as what suits you, as what applies to you and your context and how you live. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And what have you been up to?
What have we been up to? So I went and did cheese making with Megan from Silly Billy Farm. So it was just a friends group, like it
Yes.
wasn't a workshop as such. It was just a friends group getting together. She wanted a bit of company making
Oh, yeah.
cheese, and there was myself, Kelly from the Pickle Patch, and Julie, another friend of Megan's there, and we just as you do when you're in the kitchen doing stuff, we chatted, we shared food, we shared stories. We learnt some techniques, got interested in
Nice.
cheese making, and I thought this is really good that I'm
Yeah.
interested now, but it's also really not good that I'm interested because now it's another thing that I want to do all of the time, and I don't have the time for it. Making, she's making cheese every day. She's got her cows, so she's getting liters and liters of milk every day. So anyone who's follows Silly Billy Farm, they'll
Wow.
see pictures of cheese and lots of different varieties of cheese every day. So, but that's actually inspired us to
Yeah.
go and do a proper cheese making course. We're going to go and do a day down in Sydney, which is funny because I'm sure that there's one here in the Hunter, but we've decided to make a bit of a girls' trip, Kelly and myself. And we're going to go down and
Yeah.
do cheese making for the day. And learn a bit more. And what else? Got 2 new ducks.
Nice.
Yeah, two new girls to add to the
Oh.
flock so that our numbers are a little bit more even. Um,
Yeah.
what else has happened? We have decided, bom bom. Sorry, anyone who was on my side of keeping my sheep as pets for forever, but we have decided that it's time for them to go into the freezer. They're big. I mean, they're not lambs. These are 5, 6 year old wethers, and they're big boys. And we lost one last year who was their fearless leader, and so now the 2 timid ones are left, and they're really quite difficult to handle. And they're getting some, leg and some
Yeah.
feet
Okay.
issues, and they're getting a bit lame. And it's like, well, I can't get a hold of them to treat them the way I want to. And if they're in discomfort, it's then decisions made to do the deed. Which Anthony said, that's it. Just remind me not to limp anywhere near you, just in case you decide that I need to go.
Anthony,
Bless
that's
him.
terrible.
So
Make you
we're
feel worse than you already do about the whole thing.
yeah, I know. I was like, no, it's not like that. But look, it is time, and at the end of the day, we do. We live on a property. We have to make decisions that aren't great and are a little bit hard to make. And I will be an absolute basket case when the deed is done. But I've made a commitment that I'm going to be there from start to finish and involved in the whole process, no matter how much therapy I'm going to need afterwards, because that's my honor, I think, and respect to the animals to be able to be there through the whole process. So so we're going to do that at some stage over the next 2 or 3 months. Um, yeah, so we've had that going, and yeah, the rest of it's just been, work, 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 looking after the garden, keeping it going in the heat, which is actually really good now with the cooler weather starting to come in. But I'm sure we'll end up with a little heat wave for a bit at some
Yeah.
stage. But yeah, that's been pretty much us.
Yeah, it always tricks us, doesn't it?
Oh, you think, no, this is it, that's it. Like time to get all the jumpers out, the shorts and the t-shirts need to, we'll start to put them away, and then bang, you get a week of 40 degrees. And it's like, no, okay, I'm not going to
Yeah.
do that yet. I'm just going to wait. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, exciting. So there's a lot happening in your little world down there.
Yeah, there's a little bit. There's like little, I don't know, it's kind of like little bits and pieces, nothing major, but just lots of little pieces. It's just life, right?
Yeah. Well, we better get into this week's episode. We've got Michael, who lives in South Australia, and we're chatting to him mainly about the garden. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome, Michael.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on.
Quite all right. Quite all right.
So I reached out to Michael because I really want to talk about, more than anything, summer gardening. Because I know a lot of people struggle, and you're in the Barossa Valley, are you?
Yeah, just out of the Barossa Valley, so I'm in Freeling.
Yeah. So
Have you
you
ever
have
watched? Have you watched McLeod's Daughters?
No.
Did you ever watch McLeod's
That's
Daughters?
before my era.
No, people still watch McLeod's Daughters. I live in Freeling, is the town where they filmed a
Cool.
lot of McLeod's Daughters.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's just near the
Yeah.
Barossa. Yeah.
My dad lived in the hills for a little while, but they're down in Glenelg, so we kind of don't go up that way very
Yeah.
often. But it's beautiful country.
It
But
is,
hot
definitely.
and dry.
Very hot and very dry. Yes.
Yeah. So before we get too far into summer gardenings, can you tell us how your passion for gardening started, how you got into it, how it came to your life?
It's whenever I get asked that, it's like I have to really think about it. I'm like, I don't actually know. Um, well, I did the usual finishing school and doing retail and hospitality and what have you. And then I moved overseas. I spent 5 years overseas, and then I came back, and I'm like, this was, came back. I was 30. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? And I still didn't know. But I still didn't know back then. I'm like, I have no idea what I'm going to do. Ended up in the disability sector of all places, which was did my Cert 3 in disability, and then spent 10 years working in the disability sector, which was, very rewarding role. And after about 10 years, or just a couple of years before I finished up there, I started just pottering around in my own garden, and I put in a veggie bed, and then I put in another veggie bed, and I really enjoyed just being outdoors and just growing things. And it's a mixture of, like, my passion is fruit and veg growing, but doing the ornamental side of things as well, like trying to design a nice bed and that sort of thing. But yeah, the veggie beds it went from 2 and then it went to 4, and I just kept on with it. And I thought, I wonder if I can do this as a job. So whilst I was still in disability, I started studying my Cert 3 in horticulture.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, did that 1 day a week for 18 months. So I was doing 4 days in the disability, and then 1 day study a week, and did that for about 18 months until I completed. And then as soon as I finished that, I was like, okay, well, I've got the certificate now. Let's look for a job. And so ended up moving straight into sort of the horticultural field after that. And I've been doing that for 5-6 years now. But my job in hort was a lot different. It was working with ornamental plants. It was doing garden maintenance, working in high-end gardens. So, things like topiary and pruning and all that sort of stuff. So not really to do with fruit and veg growing. But at home, that's what I wanted to do. I'd come home and I'd go straight to my veggie patch and just hang out and grow things. I think the passion with growing fruit and veg is that there's always something happening. You plant your perennial plants and you just put them in, and you might need
That's
to
it.
prune them. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You might need to prune them once a year and maybe give them some fertilizer, but they just do their thing.
Yeah.
Whereas being in the veggie garden, you're watching things grow and you're growing them from seed and you see them produce amazing, produce, and
Yeah.
then you rip them out and you start again. And so there's always something to do.
Yeah.
And that's what I really enjoyed doing. And so, yeah, then I just started documenting it on my through Instagram.
Mm.
And yeah, it sort of evolved from there and got quite popular. And then, Instagram became a bit more of a bigger thing for me, and, producing, reels, but, educational reels for people to, do their own fruit and veg growing at home.
Yeah.
And that's where I am now. I'm still doing it, still working. I actually just work at a nursery now in the Barossa.
Nice.
Yeah, what's it called? Public
Where
nursery.
do I work?
It's not a public nursery. What's it called? It's just like a independent nursery in the Barossa
cool.
Valley.
Yeah, awesome.
So I just working there 3 days a week.
Yeah,
which is amazing. And then the rest of the week I get to do my own thing, which is great. I get to spend time in my own garden.
Yeah.
But yeah, content creation has sort of become part of my life, really. It helps to pay the bills. So
yeah. That's amazing. And so what made you start that veggie patch? Was it like wanting to grow your own food or a relaxation and like mental health thing, or?
Well, actually, I don't know if you'd probably call it a nervous breakdown. Like a proper, I thought I was going crazy sort of breakdown. I was still working in disability, and I don't really know what caused it. I think it stems from anxiety, which I guess I've always suffered from anxiety, but never really to the level that it got to at that point.
Sure.
It just sort of built up and built up and built up. And then I literally thought I was going crazy and I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I, went to the doctor and I went and saw a psychologist.
I never know the difference.
Yeah, therapist, went for a therapist. And just something that helped me was being outdoors.
Yeah.
I mean, you hear people say it all the time, but it was that grounding feeling of, right, I need to do this. My hands in the soil, I'm planting this, and I guess it sort of focuses your mind and pulls away from the anxious thoughts that I was having, and just sort of like, gave me that tunnel vision, and it helped to ground me quite a lot. And from there, that, I was hooked, really.
Well, thanks for telling us about that, because I feel like it's an unspoken thing. Like, it is taboo still to have mental health in your life, and that's one of the reasons we started along our permaculture journey. So I had a 6-month-old and I started having panic attacks, like severe panic attacks. And I think because I was so high functioning in my job and my life and in control of everything, it just took one little thing that I wasn't in control of and it just totally shook me. And so we literally sold everything and went traveling around Australia because I was like tapping out of the life that we had, and I just didn't know what else to do. Like, I had no solutions. And it took me a really long time to feel well again. And one of my biggest fears was buying this block of land and starting our garden, that having this kind of responsibility, I guess, or putting all this pressure on myself to maintain this big block of land that we have would kind of spiral me again. So it's been very interesting to kind of keep tabs on over the years and see what's helpful and not helpful. And I think it's good that we talk about it, because a lot of people suffer from it, especially some of our more rural listeners who are very isolated. We've had a few people reach out, so I think it's nice to share that kind of story with people, for sure.
It's true. And I guess, my pushing late 40s, mid 40s, 46 is mid 40s still, isn't it?
Yeah,
sure. When you're young, when I was young, like
46 is young. What are you talking about?
I mean, young, like
younger.
High school, 20s, 40s. I mean, it just wasn't talked about still.
No.
That's only 20 years ago, and no one would ever talk about it, and those feelings that you had, you just wouldn't. It just was never. And it's only really in the last sort of 10 or so years that it's been brought to a much more mainstream, and people are more willing to talk about it. And I think talking about it does help others because they know that they're not in this alone.
Yeah.
And
I think for a while mine was just labeled as like baby blues, like you'll be fine, you'll be fine, you'll be fine. I talked to people about it, and I tried to reach out to a lot of people, and it was like, oh, you're breastfeeding, you're emotional, you're this and that, and it kind of got pushed to the side for a long time, which probably is why I got to a breaking point where I was debilitated by it and I couldn't function. So yeah, I think it's important to try and reach out, and there are so many services these days for people. So
definitely.
And so, okay, let's talk gardens now.
Okay.
summer gardening at the moment. I mean, we've got hardly any trees on our block, so everything's just burnt to a crisp, and it's windy, so everything's getting dry. The soil's cracking. It's getting hydrophobic. Give us some tips, Michael, on summer gardening or hot weather, hot climate gardening.
I don't have any tips for you.
Oh, what? Why are you even here?
this is that's it. Okay, see you. Bye.
Bye. See you later.
I know summer gardening is. People love, people go through winter and they're like, I can't wait for the spring, and I'm going to sow my seeds, and they grow my tomatoes and my corn and whatever. And then it gets to January and February and it's just hot. And unless you have water and shelter, shade, things are not going to do that well, especially now, Australian climate. You need a lot of water for things to continue to grow. So having irrigation is a big one. And if you've got, here in South Australia, January, February, you get those weeks of 35. Last week was like 35 plus degrees all week. And you don't want to be out there in the garden, but you're just watching everything fry. And if you haven't got irrigation set up, then it's a lost cause. So lots of water. Putting up some sort of shade and shelter is a good way to do it. Even if you don't, you don't have your trees and what have you don't have your trees or anything on your property. It's a matter of putting up some stakes and sticking up some shade cloth and creating that shade, and also protecting the soil as much as you can. So putting down mulch is a huge one to help sort of keep that soil temperature at a reasonable temperature, so things don't just burn and scorch underneath the ground. But also summer is hungry veg, so things need to be fertilized. So you need to be fertilizing probably every couple of weeks, I would say, like proper liquid fertilize all your garden, all your veg, because they just soak that straight up.
They need it. So I found that definitely, like, we've got irrigation and I feel like we're still struggling, and I feel like because just that little bit of stress on the plants, they've become really vulnerable to pests and disease as well. And so I've just found that even though they're kind of struggling along, they're then getting smashed by pest because they're not healthy.
As soon as they start to get a bit weak, then the pests can smell that out. I don't know how they work it out, but they find those weaker plants and they just start munching on them.
And so, like, we've had a few early zucchinis, and then that crop fully got wiped out, and our cucumbers are just, like, slowly kind of getting there, and then they'll die a bit, and they'll have some new growth, but they haven't actually fruited yet, which is crazy. Heaps of tomatoes, but...
That's good.
Well,
what's your soil like where you are? Are you in ground or raised beds?
So our soil is like heavy clay, like ridiculously so. And when we bought the block, I thought, oh, it'll be sandy. We're near the ocean, but no, not at all. And it cracks, and you can literally fall through the cracks when it's cracked. And then in winter or when it's raining, it's just slippery and slick, and it's so compacted because it was a big area, and they must have just gotten dozers and just knocked all the trees down. So that's compacted the soil. There hasn't been any wildlife or anything on it to, like, there's not like it was a paddock where cows were pooping and it's got stuff in it. It's just bushland where there was kangaroos, and that's probably about it. So yeah, all of our beds are in raised beds, but I found that was great the rest of the year, but now in summer they're just heating up and they're drying out.
They do tend to do that, definitely, especially if you're doing, are they wooden or are they corrugated?
Corro.
Yeah, that's what I've got, the corrugated beds.
Yeah.
And again, that means that you're just going to need more water.
Yeah.
Even more water than you think you're going to need. Are you on mains?
Yes, but our water bill was higher than our electricity bill this quarter, which is very rare.
Yeah.
But we will get some big tanks once we get our house up, so that we've got that supply of water, and we're just putting up some structures now, I think, because we're just so new. Like, we'll have a chicken coop, and that'll get an IBC with water, so that can help irrigate. And but like, we've got full irrigation set up, and it comes on every day at like 6 o'clock once the sun goes down. They're all drippers, but yeah, it's still really suffering. The soil quality is really poor because it's like a mix of the shit soil we have here that's just chucked on the bottom that I thought, I'll keep adding organic matter and eventually it'll be good soil. Then we got some imported soil on top and kind of mixed it through with some, other amendments that we added to it. But because it's the first season growing, it's just poor soil. Like, it doesn't really have anything in it. It's cracking. It's very, very dry on top, even though we've got drippers, because the wind is just drying everything out. That, lovely cooling afternoon breeze is just... making everything dry, and now it's getting really crumbly and awful on top, and even that like white powdery stuff that almost comes on top once it dries out, like, it's really not happy. So I
think you're just going to have to, it's going to be the case of the first couple of seasons, until you build that soil profile, things are just going to struggle. You really need to build that dense, nice, rich soil that the roots are just going to love. But again, starting from fresh, it's just a process that takes a few seasons. Just keep adding to it.
Yeah, I've even been putting mulch on it, and then I'll stand there and water it, and then I'll go and pull a weed up, and even though I've been watering it, the weed where the roots are and the soil that's come up is completely dry. So it's, I don't know where the water's going, but it's just crazy. Like,
it just sits in the mulch. That's what it does.
I know.
I know.
Are
your drippers above them? Are your drippers on top of the mulch or under the mulch?
It's a mix in some areas. I've got to remulch now, so I probably should pull it all back and then put it underneath. But it's crazy.
Yeah, the joys. You just have to, Mother Nature.
I know.
And Mother Nature's been pretty. I mean, our winter here in SA was pretty dry, so we haven't had much water. All the the winemakers are really struggling with their grapes this season, and because where I am, it's all just out of the town. It's just plains, and nothing has been growing. None of the farmers have been able to grow much, so it's just a hard season. Yeah, definitely, because we've just not had enough rain, and everything is just drying out.
Are you on mains where you are?
I'm in the town, so I'm on mains, thankfully. So, but I feel for anyone who isn't on mains, there'd be, nothing would be growing. Yeah.
And so, what camp of watering are you in? Are you in overhead watering? Are you like drip irrigation? Do you like using a hose? Like, what's your go-to for keeping your stuff irrigated?
All types. Actually, in my house, I've been in my house for 3 years, and I still haven't installed irrigation into my veggie garden. I only just put in, because I've located the veggie garden at the back of our garden, which is poor permaculture practice, but it's but we do walk past it every day because we come in through the back.
That's
so we walk past. So it still goes. I still pass that zone every day, but there's no water there, so I've only got water right by the back of the house, and a 30-meter hose just makes it. So I've had to drag a 30-meter hose out, connect it to another 30-meter hose to be able to water my veggie patch for the past 3 years, and I've been saying I need to do this. You got to put water, and I did it finally yesterday. I actually ran a blue line out, and I've installed water into the veggie patch, put in a hose reel, But the next plan is to put drip irrigation in.
Yeah.
But I love overhead watering. It's therapeutic. I just love standing there just hosing everything. And it's a good way to be out there and to notice issues in your
Yes.
garden.
Yeah,
If
for
you're
sure.
noticing any pests or diseases happening on your plants. But again, the problem with that is when it's 35 degrees, it's the last thing you feel like doing, standing out there in the hot weather. So I guess the ideal is a mixture of both in-ground and overhead watering.
Yeah.
But drippers are all good, but I just don't feel the water.
Yes.
Yeah.
I found that
I
too. We've got 3
yeah.
lines per bed, and I still think, how does it spread further than that little circle that it makes?
Well,
With
they
the water,
say the
I
drip
guess.
lines should spread to about 50 centimeters either side of the drip line.
Yeah,
So
okay.
if you've got the lines within 50 centimeters of each other, it should be enough.
Yeah.
But you still look at it and you're like, it still doesn't look wet enough.
No.
I'm a fan of just putting in your black line,
Yeah.
poly pipe, and then just doing like little short riser sprinkler things, and just a little bit of an overhead sprinkle. So you're underneath the leaf line. So you're just the soil and then a little sprinkler that can just, sprinkle water on the soil.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. Because you can get all sorts of different types of irrigation, but yeah.
Yeah, we've got irrigation in, but we've only got 1 tap in our whole property. So we've got like the split lines, and then the lines split, and then we've got hoses everywhere. It looks like a schmozzle, but until the plumbers come and fix it up, it's like we've got to do it because everything's just going to die.
That's the hard thing as well. And if you don't have like timers set up, you know, out there trying to turn one off and turn the other one on, and yeah.
And then we went away over Christmas, and we had my husband's grandparents come and house sat, and he thought he was being very helpful and changed the settings on all the timers. And he changed it, instead of it being like every 12 hours to every 7 days, but he thought it meant 7 days a week.
Oh no.
And so we were away for 3 weeks, and everything only got watered once a week.
Yeah. Jeez.
I was like, that
wouldn't have helped.
My dahlias are all dead. My sunflowers are all dead. Everything's just brown. The corn's yellow. Like, I was like, I just start again. Getting autumn. I
just
give up.
Compost. Start composting everything. Have you started your compost bins?
Yes. What are your tips? I'm so bad at it. We have a 3-bay compost that we did right at the very beginning, but I am so bad at my habit of actually going out there and putting all our scraps out there, because where the tiny home is so far away from the compost bin. Again, bad permaculture, but it will be close to where the house is going to be. So we've kind of designed it in mind for the house and for later on. But and I just feel like I don't get enough matter to like make the compost big enough, like enough organic stuff to put in there.
Why don't you start smaller with like the black tubs or something like that?
Yeah, maybe.
Getting a couple of those.
We've got
Bokashi,
we've got 2 of those that we can like rotate between. But I don't know. I'm just lazy, I think. I can't. There's no excuse.
I do Bokashi, and then because I've got the 2 as well, and one rests while the other one, you fill the other one, and then I put that into my compost.
Yeah,
I've got the big black ones, the big ones, your standard ones
like
that you see.
Pyramid kind of looking.
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
220 litres, I think they are, something like that. I've got 2 of them, so I'll fill one, and then once that one's full, I'll let that one sit and start filling the other one.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it. You should get a couple of those and stick them close to the tiny house, and then just have right there. And then once you move into the big place, you can just move those tubs, put them in the veggie patch or something like that.
And even though you're putting bokashi in there and it's like pre-fermented, do you still layer it with like browns and stuff and greens? Yeah.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you need the browns and the greens and the air and the water. So you need to make sure you keep turning it as well.
And so how much land are you on where you are?
1,200. So quarter of an acre.
They're pretty big. What tips have you got for not acreage, I guess, but smaller urban-y areas? What tips have you got for gardening in a smaller space? That's like quite big, I guess, for urban, but
I personally, I wanted more space, but this is where we ended up. But 1,200 was an upgrade from where we were previously, because we were in town, closer to Adelaide,
Yeah.
and we were only on 700 back then. So it's almost double the size to what we were on then. But it's just to start with, you know, if you've only got a little courtyard, or if you've only got a little balcony, just get a pot, get a raised bed, get something that you can start with close to the house that you're going to attend to every day, and just plant the essential items that you want in your food. Maybe start with herbs, maybe start with, salad greens or what have you. Is a good way to start. And then once you've perfected that, then you can upgrade, and you're like, all right, I'm going to add another bed, and maybe another bed, and then maybe another bed, and try your hand at, yeah.
And were you gardening on the other block that you had, the 600 meter square block?
Yeah. So I had, the backyard wasn't huge, but I had 3 big corrugated beds that I used. I didn't do any sort of crop rotation or anything like that. They always talk about doing the crop rotation to stop you things getting, what's the word? Diseases from, going from season to season and all that sort of thing. But I never, I just plant things straight back into the same beds that I have previously. And, because I'm always amending the beds. Once I've cleared the bed, I will add, compost. I will, put some pelletized chicken manure and whatever the case may be onto the bed to help sort of amend what's been depleted from the previous growing season.
Yeah. I think if there's enough diversity in a bed too, you don't really need to do crop rotation. I feel like it's more if you're just planting potatoes completely in one bed and nothing else. And, of course, it's more likely then that you're going to get diseases and things that will target that particular plant. So
my New Year's resolution, I don't know if it's not a New Year's resolution, my new thoughts to myself is, because that's what I've done previously with my beds, is just plant, this is my tomato bed, and this is my bed which has got zucchinis in it. But I want to do a bit more of the permaculture or polyculture side of things, of like just putting everything in together, because you create that little mini ecosystem in there, with your flowers, and you've got some veg, and I don't go by the whole spacing things. You read the back of the thing and it's like, space it 60 centimeters apart. I'm like, nah. I'm just going to put them in as close as I can. I want to fit as much in as I can. And I've got a bed at my place that I've just off the back deck, that is, I just threw everything in, and it looks head and shoulders better above the ones that I've got down the back, which are just tomatoes and just zucchinis. Cool. Everything is thriving. It's got flowers. I've got lettuces and eggplants growing in there. I'll have to send a photo through, and
and the cool thing as well is that you can then, have your eggplants, and then you have your quick crops like lettuce in between, so that, you can take that out, replant it. So then the spacing for the eggplant doesn't really matter. Like, it can be close to that because you're going to take it out. So, I think it's a different ballgame when you start embracing polyculture a bit more, and the pest, pressure is a lot less, and
definitely
you're even mulching less because things like lettuce are covering the ground, so you're not having to worry about that. I think it solves a lot of problems by
it just works. It just works. It does. And as you said, the pest pressure, if you plant something that smells horrible to one pest, keeping it away from your tomatoes, that's doing things like that with the planting basil and tomato, or chives next to tomatoes because of the smell that keeps the pests away. Looking at things like companion planting is a whole nother subject. You can sort of just lose yourself in. And
have you got many fruit trees on your block?
What was I listening to? I was like listening to something today that was said, if you have at least 5 trees on your block, you've got an orchard. So I'd say I've got an orchard. I'm in my little veggie patch. I've just lined them up along the fence line. I've kept them. I've only kept them about a meter and a bit away from the fence line. My husband was telling me off when I planted them. He's like, they're too close to the fence line. They're gonna blah blah blah. But my plan has always been to keep them maintainable and small. And I've had them in for a good few years, and they are doing great. So I've got. Well, the house came with a big old lemon tree, like all houses do, and a big orange. Well, it's not huge, but a productive orange tree. So that was my inherited fruit trees, and I've added a lime, a couple of limes actually, a couple of apricots, nectarine. Just put a guava in, some figs, 2 figs, an apple tree, and I've got a few I've got a few dwarf trees, kumquat, dwarf peach, dwarf pear. So I've packed a few. I've packed a few in, which
and
is
do you
good.
exfoliate them to like try and keep them under control? No, you just prune them down.
They're all over the place. I've got a few along the fence line, and then a few in pots along the sort of lateral line to that. And then on the other side, on the outside of my little veggie bed area. So when we moved in, it was all lawn. The whole backyard was all lawn. And the first thing I said was, the first thing I put in was a veggie bed. I was like, I want a veggie garden. So we got cardboard, moving boxes and all that, and just laid them down on one section of the lawn. And then I had to put up, because I'd had 2 dogs at the time, got one now. I had to put up a little fence. So star pickets and some chicken wire just to keep them out of that section. So they weren't, making a mess and climbing into the beds and doing things dogs like to do. So in there was the veggie area. And then on the other side, I had a little patch as well that I thought to myself, I'm going to try and build a little food forest. So that is also happening very slowly. I put in avocado and it died straight away.
Oh, same.
And I put in a banana as well, probably a couple of years ago, and it's still as big as it was when I put it in. A meter maybe. So it's not doing too well. Not
They're
really. We don't really
hungry.
have the client. Yeah, they are very hungry. I don't think I feed it enough. I don't think I water it enough. And obviously, South Australian climate is not really conducive to
bananas.
Although when I did my PDC at the food forest, which is in Gawler.
Oh, I want to go there so badly. Every time I go, I try and make contact with them, and I don't even know social media people. So I'm like, hey, are you around? And I don't hear back from them. I really want to go there.
Yeah, so we're only 15 minutes away from Gawler, and I did my PDC there a couple of years ago, and they have a massive, it's like a banana forest, because they've got banana trees, and they just keep shooting up. And I was like, well, they can grow bananas, but I've still not really had much luck. And they had the most hugest, they had the biggest avocado tree I've ever seen, and it just had avocados hanging from it. And that's why I was like, I'm growing an avocado, and it just bloody died.
Well, we tell the kids every time they eat a banana to put the skins back on top of where the banana is. And it's kind of really helping feed it, because it's currently in a pot. So a lot of my fruit trees have been inherited from my mum. So she had acreage and sold it, but she had bought all this stuff to put in the ground and then changed her mind to sell the property. So we had about 50 things in pots that we've been trying to keep alive. And I think they're a bit stunted from being in there. So our banana's actually doing okay, but it definitely needs to get in the ground. Like, you can see all the little roots.
It's going to start,
so I need to get that in the ground. It's a Dakar banana, I think. And it nearly died with a big hailstorm we had too, and we just kind of trimmed it back, and it bounced right back. So it's pretty happy now. But we had
you're subtropical? Tropical?
Northern New South Wales, subtropical. So they should thrive. If it wasn't doing well, I'd be a pretty bad gardener, I think. And we have high rainfall here in general. Like, our annual yearly rainfalls are 1,200, I think.
That's like double where we are. We're about 600. So it's crazy.
Well, we kind of picked this knowing that we wanted to have a big garden and kind of permaculture our life a little bit. So We're getting there slowly. And I've got some figs that I got from my grandma. So they're in the ground, like just cuttings from her tree. They're probably about my height now, which is awesome. We're trying to get all of our big trees in, and then we'll underplant it like as we go with, herbs, and create like that forest layer along both hedges of our property. So yeah, but getting there slowly. But our avocados, we're not happy at all. I think they've just been sad in the pots for too long, and then we put them in the ground and they were like freaking out.
Well, I've heard, because I had the avocado at my previous place, and it was in a pot because I knew we were going to move soon, and then I put it in the ground as soon as we got here. And apparently they can sulk for a little while, and they can drop their leaves, and then they'll bounce back once
up.
they've settled in. But mine did not do that.
Yeah, I thought the same, and I actually chopped it down to think, I'll give it a bit of a prune and it'll kind of come back, and it just never did. I picked it up, put it back in a pot again to think, we'll try and revive it, and I'll plant something else, and it just shriveled up and died.
I know, and I'm where we are, obviously hot, dry climate, and I'm determined to continue to try and grow bloody tropical fruit trees.
Tropical fruits.
I've got
a little, microclimate happening.
That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah. I've got a mango. I'm trying to grow a mango. That's in a wicking pot at the moment, so it's pretty happy in the pot. I don't know what would happen if I put it in the ground. And I've just planted a pawpaw, which is also in a wicking pot. And I put that into my greenhouse, and I think it's going to stay in the greenhouse for quite a while, if not always. Although they can get quite tall, so I don't know about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was like, I want pawpaw and I want mangoes, and it's like the climate is just not conducive for it. But I'm determined. I'm going to build that little microclimate, and it's going to happen. Sure. Yeah.
And I saw a reel you did recently, and I kind of knew that, but I'd totally forgotten the information about plants that wilt their leaves on purpose to stop transpiration. Can you explain that a little bit for people who haven't seen that reel? Because I just thought they were thirsty, and I went ahead and watered them, and then I think I burnt the leaves a little bit because I watered them while they were, in the sun.
Lots. That's the first thing most people do when they see that. It happens a lot on your cucurbits, your cucurbit family. Your big leafy zucchinis and squashes and cucumbers. They'll especially in the hot days when the sun's beating down on them, you can see their leaves just sort of just droop down, and you panic and you think, oh my God, they're dying. They haven't got any water. But it's actually a defense mechanism where they drop their leaves so that the surface area for the leaf there's less surface area being affected by the sun. And that helps to reduce how much transpiration or water evaporation that they do throughout the day. And then they'll perk back up in the evening.
Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah.
And so don't water them when they're like that.
No, you probably don't need if you get to the evening time and they're still
sad,
droopy, then something's awry. But if you come to 6 o'clock at night and you see and their leaves are bounced back up, then they should be fine. Yeah, definitely.
And what's your take in your garden with pests? Do you kind of leave them be? Do you treat them? Do you have natural approach you use? What do you kind of do?
I don't really do anything, actually. I don't have too much pests in my garden, which is probably a good sign. I've noticed a few areas that we've had aphids before, but if you just leave them, the population of the aphids builds up, and then all of a sudden you've got ladybug larvae running around eating them, and predatory wasps in there sort of munching on them. So I rarely use any sort of pesticides in my garden.
Yeah.
Which is
that's good.
It's probably the way. Yeah, that's the way I like. I like it.
Yeah.
Although, saying that, if something was going absolutely crazy, I might think something differently. I'd still try and stick with as natural things as possible, like an eco oil or a neem oil or something like that, rather than using a harsh chemical to help control them.
Our figs have just had the fig beetle attack them, and so all of the leaves have gone. We've just left it because they're not going to produce fruit this year. It's their first time in the ground. but I'm hoping it doesn't set them back like next
Yeah.
year. But yeah, that was one thing that I was like, oh, how would I treat that? And there's a lot of pests. I think because there's a lack of ecosystem here, especially there's just not the rest of it to support it and balance it all out. So yeah, that's been a big learning curve for us.
How close is your closest neighbour?
We're on an acre and a half. So
Okay.
currently
Not too
there's
far
someone
away.
building next door, and
Yeah.
then on the other side's vacant land still.
I was going to say, you might have a bit of an ecosystem if you had closer neighbours, but
Yeah.
sounds like it's all pretty.
No, not really.
No.
Yeah.
You need to start planting. You need to plant a little flower patch or something like that, and
Yeah,
get
that's what
something.
we've just put in some sunflowers and dahlias and nasturtiums. What else we got? Marigolds. So yeah, we've got like a little native bee hive ready to go, but we haven't put bees in there yet because the native bees only travel 500 meters for their food.
Oh, right.
Unlike the European bees that can go 5 kilometers or something. And so, yeah, we just want to get more food and habitat for them before we go doing anything, because that's kind of sad if we get them and then like it's
got nothing to eat.
Sorry, guys.
Good luck.
Yeah.
And have you got bird bath or anything like that? Bird baths, water.
We've got some like irises, like water irises. So we've got like tubs that they're in at the moment that they can access, and we've got some little bee bath ones, not like bird ones, but like the tiny little ones. Have you seen the ones that they kind of
the little
yeah, they're pretty. So I've got some of them in the garden, just for the insects and things, and then we've got some logs in the garden to try and create a bit more habitat. So because it's just been cleared, we want to make our little patch a bit of a nature corridor. So we've left all of our big gum trees and everything, which is great. But then we have possums coming and eating all of our pumpkins.
Bloody possums!
They've attacked everything.
And you can't do anything about them.
No, so far they were eating my dahlias too, like literally coming down the tree, munching the whole thing off, and then so at the moment everything's got chicken wire, like about 900 high, with just pegs around it to stop them climbing it. The pumpkins were volunteer pumpkins, so I was like, you know what, you can eat the pumpkins because at least it's heading you in that direction in my garden, and hopefully I'll give them something else to do rather than eat my stuff that I want to be eating. And I think we'll plant a lot more pumpkins and things down the back and seasonally just pick things at the very, very back of our block to try and encourage them to go down there instead of where my veggie patch is. But I
don't have possums, I've got rats. They come in, and I netted all my fruit trees. I was like, I'm going to net my fruit trees from the birds.
And they climbed up.
But then the rats bloody climbed up the trunk and stole all the fruit anyway. So they're my pest that I have to deal with. And I'm not much of a. I don't really want to kill them. I don't want to bait them. I'm not,
Especially if you've got dogs around and stuff, because if the dogs then get a rat or something, it's kind of a bit dangerous.
And then, you can, I know if you do bait them, you have to use the sort of one that doesn't have the secondary, if then owls eat them and then they also die. But it's not really, it's not me, not my cup of tea is killing things, but I'm like, I want to eat some of my own fruit, please. That would be nice. Right? But I've just got bees. Got bees arrived yesterday.
Fun.
Yeah, we're just hosting the hive.
Hives,
They came last night, so I'm very excited about having some bees around to help with some pollination.
Yeah.
Reduce the amount of hand pollination I'm doing on my zucchinis and squashes and things like that. I mean, I've got bees around, but I always like to do a bit of hand pollination to help things along, get some extra produce.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're coming up to the end of our chat.
I'm ready.
I know, it's been 45 minutes. We always ask our guests a final question, and that is, what's one piece of advice that you'd give someone who's just starting out on their gardening journey?
Piece of advice.
Yeah.
I think I said it earlier. It's just to start. People, people want to do these things and then they get scared or they're worried or they don't think they've got the space. It's, you can, no matter what the space, get a pot, get a little raised bed, whatever the case may be, and start small. As I said,
Yes.
just start with a few herbs, some hardy herbs that, perennial herbs, rosemary and oregano and whatever the case may be, and they will just look after themselves.
Yeah.
And then once you've mastered that, then you can add
Move
some
on.
lettuces in,
Yeah.
and then maybe try a few flowers as well. So
Yeah.
it's just to get out there and to start. And once you start and you get the hang of it, then there's no going back. You get hooked, and then
And you learn so much from that first little
You
teething
do.
period, don't you? Of
You
just
do.
growing some herbs, and
Definitely.
you realize what you can and can't do, and where they like things, and how much water to give stuff, and
Yeah, definitely.
yeah.
And watch, consume stuff. Watch, YouTube or
Yes.
Gardening Australia. I love watching Gardening Australia. Or
There's
if
so much info out there.
Gardener's World, if you love Monty Don like I do.
Yes, he's so
in the
cool.
UK, yeah.
I just watched his Mediterranean series while I was sick, and I was like, oh, they're so beautiful.
I know. Tell me about it. I love all of his things. I don't know how I got onto Monty Don, but he's my garden guru.
Yeah, he's very
Even
cool.
though it's, the Gardener's World is very British, and some of the applications don't really apply to us here in Australia. Costa is Australia's version of Monty Don.
Very different version of Monty Don. But yes.
Very.
Funny. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. You do
No
have your
worries.
own YouTube and everything, so we'll put all the links for that so people can start learning.
Yeah,
I know
for sure.
You've got one on mint recently that you did, and I was looking at the shade one you did with the umbrella. That was really clever for especially now summer gardening. So there's lots of tips people can learn from jumping on there and watching your stuff.
Come and visit me.
Well, thanks for the recording, and hopefully we'll
worries.
chat to you soon.
Thank you. See ya.
Bye.